أنت الرب العظيم الذي ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير. وهذا شهر عظمته وكرمته وشرفته وفضلته على الشهور، وهو الشهر الذي فرضت صيامه علي، وهو شهر رمضان الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان، وجعلت فيه ليلة القدر وجعلتها خيرا من 1000 شهر. فيا ذا المن ولا يمن عليك، من علي بفكاك رقبتي من النار، في من تمن عليه وأدخلني الجنة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم أدخل على أهل القبور السرور. اللهم أغني كل فقير. اللهم أشبع كل جائع. اللهم اكس كل عريان. اللهم اقض دين كل مدين. اللهم فرج عن كل مكروب. اللهم رد كل غريب. اللهم فك كل أسير. اللهم أصلح كل فاسد من أمور المسلمين. اللهم اشفي كل مريض. اللهم سد فقرنا بغناك. اللهم غير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك. اللهم اقض عنا الدين وأغننا من الفقر، إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم رب شهر رمضان الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن وافترضت على عبادك فيه الصيام، صل على محمد وآل محمد وارزقني حج بيتك الحرام في عامي هذا وفي كل عام، واغفر لي تلك الذنوب العظام، فإنه لا يغفرها غيرك يا رحمن يا علام. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أفتتح الثناء بحمدك، وأنت مسدد للصواب بمنك، وأيقنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة، وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النكال والنقمة، وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك، فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي، وأجب يا رحيم دعوتي، وأقل يا غفور عثرتي. فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها، وهموم قد كشفتها، وعثرة قد أقلتها، ورحمة قد نشرتها، وحلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له شريك في الملك، ولم يكن له ولي من الذل، وكبره تكبيرا. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها، على جميع نعمه كلها، الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكه ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره، وحمده الظاهر بالكرم مجده، الباسط بالجود يده، الذي لا تنقص خزائنه ولا تزيده كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما، إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير، مع حاجة بي إليه عظيمة، وغناك عنه قديم، وهو عندي كثير وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي وصفحك عن ظلمي وسترك على قبيح عملي وحلمك عن كثير جرمي عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي أطمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك، الذي رزقتني من رحمتك وأريتني من قدرتك وعرفتني من إجابتك، فصرت أدعوك آمنا وأسألك مستأنسا، لا خائفا ولا وجلا، مدلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك، فإن أبطأ عني عتبت بجهلي عليك، ولعل الذي أبطأ عني هو خير لي لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. فلم أرى مولا كريما أصبر على عبد لئيم منك علي. يا ربي إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك، وتتحبب إلي وأتبغض إليك، وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك، كأن لي التطول عليك، فلم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة لي والإحسان إلي والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك، فارحم عبدك الجاهل وجد عليه بفضل إحسانك، إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح فالق الإصباح ديان الدين رب العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه، والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته، والحمد لله على طول أناته في غضبه، وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق باسط الرزق فالق الإصباح ذي الجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام، الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادله ولا شبيه يشاكله ولا ظهير يعاضده، قهر بعزته الأعزاء وتواضع لعظمته العظماء، فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أناديه ويستر علي كل عورة وأنا أعصيه، ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازيه. فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد أعطاني، وعظيمة مخوفة قد كفاني، وبهجة مونقة قد أراني، فأثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مسبحا. الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك حجابه، ولا يغلق بابه، ولا يرد سائله، ولا يخيب آمله. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين وينجي الصالحين، ويرفع المستضعفين ويضع المستكبرين، ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين. والحمد لله قاصم الجبارين، مبير الظالمين، مدرك الهاربين، نكال الظالمين، صريخ المستصرخين، موضع حاجات الطالبين، معتمد المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها، وترجف الأرض وعمارها، وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا، وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق، ويرزق ولا يرزق، ويطعم ولا يطعم، ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى وهو حي لا يموت، بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك، وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك، أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى، وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم وصل على أمير المؤمنين، اللهم وصل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين، عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. وصل على صبتي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي، حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم وصل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر وحفه بملائكتك المقربين وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعله الداعي إلي في كتابك والقائم بدينك استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله. مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته. أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه واعزز به وانصره وانتصر به وانصره نصرا عزيزا وافتح له فتحا يسيرا واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله وتذل بها النفاق وأهله وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملناه وما قصرنا عنه فبلغناه. اللهم المم به شعثنا واشعب به صدعنا وارتق به فتقنا وكثر به قلتنا وأعزز به ذلتنا وأغني به عائلنا واقض به عن مغرمنا واجبر به فقرنا وسد به خلتنا ويسر به عسرنا وبيض به وجوهنا وفك به أسرنا وأنجح به طلبتنا وأنجز به مواعيدنا واستجب به دعوتنا وأعطنا به سؤلنا وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا وأعطنا به فوق رغبتنا يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطين. اشف به صدورنا وأذهب به غيظ قلوبنا واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إله الحق آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله وغيبة ولينا وكثرة عدونا وقلة عددنا وشدة الفتن بنا وتظاهر الزمان علينا. فصل على محمد وآله وأعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجله وبضر تكشفه ونصر تعزه وسلطان حق تظهره ورحمة منك تجللناها وعافية منك تلبسناها برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم برحمتك في الصالحين فأدخلنا، وفي عليين فارفعنا، وبكأس من معين من عين سلسبيل فاسقنا، ومن الحور العين برحمتك فزوجنا، ومن الولدان المخلدين كأنهم لؤلؤ مكنون فأخدمنا، ومن ثمار الجنة ولحوم الطير فأطعمنا، ومن ثياب السندس والحرير والاستبرق فألبسنا، وليلة القدر وحج بيتك الحرام وقتلا في سبيلك فوفق لنا، وصالح الدعاء والمسألة فاستجب لنا، وإذا جمعت الأولين والآخرين يوم القيامة فارحمنا، وبراءة من النار فاكتب لنا، وفي جهنم فلا تغلنا، وفي عذابك وهوانك فلا تبتلنا، ومن الزقوم والضريع فلا تطعمنا، ومع الشياطين فلا تجعلنا، وفي النار على وجوهنا فلا تكببنا، ومن ثياب النار وسرابيل القطران فلا تلبسنا، ومن كل سوء يا لا إله إلا أنت بحق لا إله إلا أنت فنجنا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك أن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر من الأمر المحتوم في الأمر الحكيم من القضاء الذي لا يرد ولا يبدل أن تكتبني من حجاج بيتك الحرام المبرور حجهم المشكور سعيهم المغفور ذنوبهم المكفر عن سيئاتهم، وأن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر أن تطيل عمري في خير وعافية، وتوسع في رزقي، وتجعلني ممن تنتصر به لدينك ولا تستبدل به غيري. أعوذ بجلال وجهك الكريم أن ينقضي عني شهر رمضان، أو يطلع الفجر من ليلة هذه ولك قبلي تبعة أو ذنب تعذبني عليه. Dua for the last 10 nights. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إنك قلت في كتابك المنزل شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان، فعظمت حرمة شهر رمضان بما أنزلت فيه من القرآن، وخصصته بليلة القدر وجعلتها خيرا من 1000 شهر. اللهم وهذه أيام شهر رمضان قد انقضت، ولياليه قد تصرمت، وقد صرت يا إلهي منه إلى ما أنت أعلم به مني، وأحصى لعدده من الخلق أجمعين، فأسألك بما سألك به ملائكتك المقربون وأنبياؤك المرسلون، وعبادك الصالحون أن تصلي على محمد وآل محمد وأن تفك رقبتي من النار وتدخلني الجنة برحمتك وأن تتفضل علي بعفوك وكرمك وتتقبل تقربي وتستجيب دعائي وتمن علي بالأمن يوم الخوف من كل هول أعددته ليوم القيامة. إلهي وأعوذ بوجهك الكريم وبجلالك العظيم أن ينقضي أيام شهر رمضان ولياليه ولك قبلي تبعة أو ذنب تؤاخذني به أو خطيئة تريد أن تقتصها مني لم تغفرها لي. سيدي 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 أسألك يا لا إله إلا أنت إذ لا إله إلا أنت إن كنت رضيت عني في هذا الشهر فازدد عني رضا وإن لم تكن رضيت عني فمن الآن فارض عني يا أرحم الراحمين. يا الله يا أحد يا صمد يا من لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. يا ملين الحديد لداود عليه السلام يا كاشف الضر والكرب العظام عن أيوب عليه السلام أي مفرج هم يعقوب عليه السلام أي منفس غم يوسف عليه السلام صل على محمد وآل محمد كما أنت أهله أن تصلي عليهم أجمعين وافعل بي ما أنت أهله ولا تفعل بي ما أنا أهله. يا ملين الحديد لداود عليه السلام يا كاشف الضر والكرب العظام عن أيوب عليه السلام أي مفرج هم يعقوب عليه السلام أي منفس غم يوسف عليه السلام صل على محمد وآل محمد كما أنت أهله أن تصلي عليهم أجمعين وافعل بي ما أنت أهله ولا تفعل بي ما أنا أهله. يا ملين الحديد لداود عليه السلام يا كاشف الضر والكرب العظام عن أيوب عليه السلام أي مفرج هم يعقوب عليه السلام أي منفس غم يوسف عليه السلام صل على محمد وآل محمد كما أنت أهله أن تصلي عليهم أجمعين وافعل بي ما أنت أهله ولا تفعل بي ما أنا أهله. صلوات الله. Dua for the 26th night. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل
That is the but just to give you an idea about Surah Al-Kawthar, my teacher, Marhum Allame Hassanzadeh Amuli, who was quoting from his teacher, Marhum Sha'rani, that Ayatollah Sha'rani used to run series of lessons on Tafsir Surah Kawthar. 6 months. For 6 months, he said, Marhum Allame Sha'rani was running a series on Tafsir Surah Kawthar. And sometimes as he was talking and elaborating on Surah Kawthar, from so many different angles, this great scholar, he was approaching this short surah and talking about it. And sometimes he was himself getting so emotional that from the way that he was explaining, his students we were all in awe of what he's talking. And we were wondering how every day that he comes and speaks from a different angle about Surah Kawthar, we were all wondering, where does he get all this information from? Rahmatullah a'lallah maqama. For the pleasure of their souls, please say salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Imam Hussein alayhi salam was having a session teaching the kids, his children, nephews, among which they were the nephews of the brother, the orphans of the brother, Imam Hassan Mujtaba alayhi salam. You appreciate that when Imam Hassan Mujtaba alayhi salam was martyred, he left some orphan children behind. The oldest one, his name is Qasim ibn Hassan. You remember the story of Qasim in Karbala. Then we have Abdullah, who his mother had just given birth, or perhaps the mother was pregnant when Imam Hassan Mujtaba alayhi salam was martyred. So Sheikh Tusin Amali mentions that Imam Hassan, in the last days, hours of his life, mentions and reminds Imam Hussein to be, you are an uncle and be like a father for my children and look after my children as well. So Imam Hussein alayhi salam is having a class for the children, including the children of the orphans of Imam Hassan Mujtaba alayhi salam, and explains to them the meaning of Al-Kawthar, Inna a'tainaka Al-Kawthar. Then the Imam says that Kawthar is a river in paradise, Ahla min al-asal, Abyad min al-laban, Abrad min al-thalj. Kawthar is a river in paradise that is sweeter, the taste of this river is sweeter than honey. The color of the river is whiter than milk. The coldness of the river is cooler than ice. Gives all the explanations. And Qasim ibn al-Hassan is there. Qasim is asking that, uncle, who is this river for? Who will have like the honor of tasting this river? Imam Hussein alayhi salam has a very good message for all of us, inshallah, as well. Ya Allah, please bless us and our offspring to have the love of Ahlul Bayt truly inflamed in us all the way and in our offspring to the day of judgment. Imam Hussein alayhi salam says that my grandfather, Allah's messenger, said that that river is for lemuhibbi Ahlul Bayt. This river is for the lovers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. The lovers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam are going to taste from the river of Kawthar in the hereafter, which is sweeter than honey and whiter than milk and all the rest of it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala include us all among the true lovers of Ahlul Bayt, because the Prophet says, Al-mar'u yahshuru ma'a man ahab. You will be associated in the hereafter with whoever you love the most. And if Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam are the most beloved one to you, that you always give the priority to them over anyone and anything else, inshallah, rest assured that with the shafaat of Ahlul Bayt, you will be associated with them with salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. That was the lesson Qasim ibn al-Hassan in his youth got from his master, his Sayyid, his uncle, and the fatherly figure. But this lesson had to be tested, whether Qasim really is going to practice this lesson or not. God says that you will not truly love unless you sacrifice your life even for the one that you love the most. On the night of Ashura, the eve of Tasu'ah, when Imam Hussein alayhi salam is talking to the companions, you've heard the story, and mentions that you will be all slaughtered, all will be killed tomorrow. If anyone cannot stand it, I give you permission to leave. And all you heard, they express their loyalty. After the majlis is over, Qasim, who was under the age of puberty, the narrators, they say he was around 12, 13 years of age. He comes to the uncle, the fatherly figure, the teacher, and he says, Uncle, Anafi man uqtal? Am I going to be among the martyrs tomorrow as well? Imam Hussein, before answering him, first he wants to test him, whether he has learned the lessons from the teacher before properly or not. And therefore the Imam says, my dear, كيف الموت عندك? How do you perceive death in the way of Allah? He says, Uncle, you taught me أحلى من العسل أبرد من الثلج. By saying that, reminded Imam Hussein alayhi salam that I still remember the lesson. I still remember the hadith that you taught us, Uncle. Please give me the permission. So I've been praying for the tawfiq, the opportunity to practice this lesson. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, my dear uncle, yes, you will be also among those tomorrow will be martyred and killed as well. On the day of Ashura, after Janab Ali Akbar is martyred, Qasim ibn al-Hasan comes to the uncle. I don't know, many of your brothers are uncles. You have nephews. You know how you feel, especially if your nephew is an orphan. And from childhood, he's grown in your house. And you have that sense of responsibility. Often we have this sense of responsibility for the orphan of our brothers more than our own children, is it not? Now Qasim ibn al-Hasan is coming and it's a battlefield. Imam knows that soon the trust of the brother will be cut into pieces. Seeking permission. Naturally, therefore, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when the narrators, eyewitnesses, they say, استأذن أباه فأبى الحسين أن أذن له. He sought permission from the uncle, but Imam Hussein refused initially to give him the permission. He says, my dear, you are under the age. Still we have soldiers. But Qasim says that, uncle, Janab Ali Akbar is martyred. Ali Akbar and I, we were so much together. I cannot live without Ali Akbar. And he started begging the uncle, kissing the hands and the feet of the uncle, until Imam Hussein alayhi salam granted him the permission. This young boy, the orphan of Imam Hassan Mujtaba alayhi salam, jumped and mounted the horse and ran towards the enemy. After a bit of fighting, he cried, uncle, help! But by the time Imam Hussein alayhi salam, eyewitnesses, they mentioned Imam Hussein like a fighting falcon, ran towards the nephew. But by the time Imam is there, Qasim ibn al-Hasan has already met his Lord. Imam Hussein alayhi salam hugged the head of the nephew of the brother and painfully cried, Azza wallah, ala ammika an tad'uhu fala yujibuk, أو يجيبك فلا ينفعك. My dear nephew, the trust of the brother, enjoy the company of your father. It is so painful for your uncle to call him, but he cannot help. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين وعلى أخيك أبو الفضل العباس وأختيك زينب وأم كلثوم بنتك سكينة. السلام عليكم يا أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي. السلام عليك يا حجة الله يا ابن الحسن يا صاحب الأسر والزمان. عجل الله فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A warm welcome to you all to the third session of the Rest in Peace seminar. It's really encouraging to see all of you attending the sessions regularly. And not only the registered participants are following these sessions, but we see a lot of community members who have been attending regularly and following the sessions as well via the YouTube channel. I request you all, before you take your places, please make sure that you have registered your names at the various designated spots in the Imam Barga before we can begin the session. I'd also like to thank you all for your positive feedback, your questions, your suggestions. Please keep those coming on, as it really encourages to organize more of such informative and educational events. Okay, thank you for your attention. Please be comfortable, and I'll request Sheikh Leghaei to commence the third session of the Rest in Peace seminar. Thank you.
Ya Allah, ilahi bi hawlika wa quwwatik. Don't record this part that I'm going to say. Usually before we start, I say doors closing, please stand clear. With salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, we commence inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. I thought there's a cat coming to me. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. Astaghfirullah. Make sure you edit these parts. That's the problem today. You are sniffing and sneezing, and the whole world see you on YouTube channel and everything. What kind of life is this? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم لا سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين لمقدمه الفداء. Respected brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah alladhi hadana lihada wa ma kunna linahtadiya lawla an hadana Allah. Our third session, inshallah, continuation of a little bit was left about ghusl al-mayyit, and inshallah tonight we learn about ghusl al-mayyit, Hanut and Takhvin of the Mayyit, inshallah. Once again, to entice you, inshallah, especially the youngsters, to come and learn more about this obligation, I'm sharing with you one hadith, one prophetic hadith about the reward of attending the funeral and the ghusl al-mayyit. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is quoted to have said, "Ma min mu'minin yughassilu mayyitan إلا يتباعد عنه لهب النار ويوسع الله عليه الصراط بقدر ما يبلغ الصوت ويعطى نورا حتى يوافي الجنة." There is no believer who gives ghusl to a deceased, but the flame of the fire will be kept away from them. Now, I don't need to mention this for the sake of who are concerned about the gender use. Arabic, English has this issue. So because here I'm exactly translating the hadith, I'm mentioning him, but whatever is him, her, obviously as well, no difference. And Allah will expand the path for him for as long as the voice can reach, and he will be granted the light until he enters paradise. Really, I envy when coming across such ahadith, those who have taken such a great task and are enjoying such a great reward upon themselves of looking after the deceased person. To give you an idea, last night after we finished, and marhum that unfortunately is still, I'm not sure about his name, rahmatullah alayh, after the ghusl was done and they had put the shroud and the coffin as well, brothers who were around the person, I told them that subhanallah, I honestly, not because I wanted to say it, sincerely that was the feeling, like the message that I was getting, silent message coming from the mayyit, the message of gratitude. Thank you. Yeah, like he's so grateful that alhamdulillah all this team looked after his ghusl, kafan and everything. Is so much rest in this rest in peace is something that several times in ghusl khana I've experienced it with the mayyateen. So inshallah, hani'an lakum, the nur of the reward of this action will stay with you all the way to paradise inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ghusl of a fetus and child. Last night we spoke about the ghusl mayyit, and we said that it consists of 3 types of water. And so many questions, mashallah, a PDF file of over 54 or plus questions have come to me. Some of them have been already answered, most of them have not been answered. Some tonight will be addressed inshallah. Especially when we are running the practical side of it, some of the questions I need to demonstrate it, like the question about how a water becomes mudaf and how we can distinguish whether it is mudaf or not. When we are doing the practice, inshallah, it will be the place to show and explain the difference. Before I mention the jurisprudential rule, when a baby is brought to you or you come to know that a mother has lost her child, it's very important Islamically to give them some moral and emotional support. One of them is this hadith, and there are more than that. Just to save the time, I mentioned one hadith here that Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says, Inna Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala kaffala Ibrahim wa Sara atfar al-mu'minin yaghduwanihim bi shajaratin fil jannah. The Almighty Allah has appointed Prophet Ibrahim and Sarah. Perhaps the reason for Sarah, the wife of the Prophet Ibrahim, as you know, she was barren and had no child. In lieu to that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is compensating her in paradise, in barzakh, to look after the children of mu'mineen. There are some other riwayat, actually I haven't mentioned it here, but there are riwayat that the children of the Shia mu'mineen also will be looked after, especially the fetus or the children who at the age of breastfeeding, before the weaning, they die. Bibi Fatimah Zahra salamullah alayha looks after them. But this hadith says Ibrahim and Sarah, for the children of the believers in paradise, they feed them from a tree in paradise. There are some other riwayat that they will be like birds in paradise. There are riwayat that such children at the gate of paradise they stay until when the parents die and plead to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, Ya Allah, I will not enter paradise unless I can intercede my mother, I can intercede my father, on the condition that they endure patience and did not complain about God, astaghfirullah, didn't say anything that God would be not pleased with, they will receive the intercession from that very child. Now the rules. Ghusl mayyit must be performed on a deceased fetus 4 months or older, because usually 4 months is the time that the ruh is associated with the body. From the 4 months or more, 16 weeks or plus, it's the obligation of ghusl mayyit. However, there is no salat mayyit or talghin. So if a fetus of 6 months, 7 months old dies, there is ghusl mayyit, including hanut and everything, but salat al-mayyit, no requirement. Talghin, obviously no requirement. Ghusl mayyit and salat are obligatory for any deceased believer, mu'min, 6 years or older. So children under the age of 6, there is no salat al-mayyit on them. There is still ghusl, but no salat al-mayyit. And there is no talghin for them as well. But from the age of 6 plus, there is obligation of salat al-mayyit. Ghusl, of course, is there. There is obligation of salat al-mayyit as well. And for the talghin also, the riwayat says that 6 years and plus, it's good to give them the basic talghin at least would be good to do the talqin for them as well. This is as far as the obligation is concerned. However, there are riwayat that it is good for any completely born child, like if a child is stillborn, completed the 9 months and is born and died, or 2 months old, 3 months old, under 6 years old, still it is mustahab to do the salat and ghusl mayyit that had to be done as well. So 6 years or older, however, it is mustahab to perform them on any born child. After the completion of ghusl, we have a rule in Kitab al-Tahara, it's called taba'iyyat, subsequent or subsequence, which means that when you are, like for example, doing the best, one of the best examples of it is at the time of washing the mayyit. After the completion of ghusl mayyit, the stone slab on which a mayyit is washed, the cloth which was used to cover the private part, and the hands of the washing person, or even if there are more than one, all of them will become automatically tahir. So with the completion of the third ghusl, that is with the khalis, your hands also automatically is tahir. The palette, that place where you are washing the dead person is also tahir. We don't need to wash it anymore. Already has been washed and is tahir and pak as well. What about the apron? Last night I mentioned, that's why I want to correct myself. Ayatollah Sistani, as for the apron, has ihtiyat, obligatory. That's why I mentioned it here. For obligatory precaution, this does not include apron. So the apron that is wet, it, according to obligatory precaution of Ayatollah Sistani, you need to remove it. If after that you want to go and do the shrouding and the kafan, don't go with that because it's najas. You need to remove it and dress differently or leave that part to other people. But hands washed or tahir already. Now, in case the ghusl was not possible, the alternative to ghusl is tayammum. When the tayammum needs to be done, ghusl jabire mayyit is not legitimate. Let me explain this one. For us living people, if I have a bandage, for example, or my leg, my foot is broken and is in plaster or something, I can cover it and still do the ghusl, and that part water, I can pour the water on the plastics or something. That we call it ghusl jabire. Or I have a bandage on my hand that I cannot remove it. If I remove it, it will be bleeding. It has to be on. I will cover it with plastic something and do the ghusl that I need to do. It is called ghusl jabire, similar to wudu jabire. Jabire means the wound. But for ghusl mayyit, majority of our fuqaha, and deliberately I mentioned the names, the famous ones that you know of, like Ayatollah Sistani, Ayatollah Khamenei, before them Ayatollah Khouei. Majority of our fuqaha, they say that for ghusl mayyit, there is no ghusl jabire mayyit, legitimate. Yani we don't have any hadith that this is permissible. So you cannot compare ghusl mayyit always with the normal ghusl that we do. So what shall we do? This is the situation that this mayyit has been brought from the hospital. There are bandages around him and there are stitches, for example. And if I want to remove them, either it's the place will be bleeding, or the skin may be removed and it's complicated. Or there are some stitches, or because of the things that they have put, there are glues. It's difficult to remove them because remember, for the ghusl, you have to do the ghusl on the body, on the skin. So if there are obstacles, in as much as I said the nail polish has to be removed, any glue on the body or any stitch, not the stitches, any bandage or things that are obstacle, all have to be removed to be able to do the ghusl completely. Otherwise the skin is not washed. Now, to remove them, the mayyit will be bleeding. Not to remove them, you have an obstacle. And this glue, to scratch it, to remove the glue, the skin may come off and bleeding and all the rest of it. What shall we do in this situation? In such situations, the alternative is tayammum. Even there are cases that, like, the body is not possible to be washed. In a car accident or something, as much as you try to wash the body, you see that you stop the bleeding several times and it's still throughout, because especially when pouring water, it may aggravate it and again blood is coming out. If that's the case, forget about ghusl mayyit. There is no ghusl jabire. majority of our fuqaha, like the ones that you are more concerned about, they don't allow ghusl jabire. So what happens? We go to the next option, that is tayammum. If ghusl mayyit is not possible, tayammum is the only alternative. We do the tayammum. The difference between tayammum and wudu, however, is that when you are doing the ghusl, what do you say, tayammum and ghusl, for the ghusl mayyit you can wear gloves and do ghusl mayyit. But for tayammum, obviously you cannot wear the gloves. Definitely the gloves have to be removed because the hands have to wipe and touch the skin of the mayyit for tayammum. There are some controversies about the tayammum. I will mention it inshallah to make it clear. Tayammum jabire is legitimate. Ghusl jabire, remember, is not legitimate, it's not permissible, but tayammum jabire is permissible. What do I mean? For example, the person, the mayyit that they have brought, there is a bandage on his forehead where you need to do the tayammum, and it's not possible to remove it. Or there is a glue on the hand or something because of all the medications and things on the body, it's not possible to remove it. Ghusl was not possible, but even if I want to do the tayammum, I cannot wipe completely on the hands and the forehead of the mayyit. What am I supposed to do? It's fine. So unlike ghusl mayyit that jabire was not permissible, tayammum jabire is fine. And all our fuqaha accept that, and there's no problem with that. This is the meaning of tayammum jabire is legitimate. Inshallah is clear. Wearing gloves when giving tayammum is not permissible, as I mentioned. If neither ghusl nor tayammum are possible, this obligation is exempt, is lifted. A mayyit unfortunately is brought because, as I said, has been in the bush, found after 6 months, the body is rotten, impossible to open the bag. Yani it's definitely impossible, or it will be too difficult really, no one can stand the smell. Or the body kind of is dismantled, or it was a car accident and the head is completely damaged. Impossible to do the ghusl, impossible to do the tayammum. What shall we do? Zip it back and you don't have any obligation. Someone asked, can we do the ghusl on the plastic? No, we don't need to do the ghusl on the plastic or the car or anything. Once the body is not possible to do the ghusl, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is most forgiving. We don't have any obligation, and inshallah God will reward that disease more than even if we would have washed him. Now, we want to do the tayammum. How to do the tayammum? The fatwa of our jurists differ in the method of performing tayammum. That's why, because we are broadcasting this internationally, I need to mention some of the famous fatwas at least. Still, if someone is not following the ones that I mentioned here, for the sake of recording, you need to check about the fatwa of your marja. According to Ayatollah Sistani, hafidhahullah, tayammum should be performed by the hands of the one who performs the tayammum. This is a very controversial issue based on the different narrations that we have. Some of our fuqaha, they say that you have to give the make the mayyit himself with his own hands to do the tayammum to the mayyit. But the one who is doing the tayammum, like if I am the ghassal, I'm helping, I'm taking the hands of the mayyit and doing the tayammum by his own hands. But Ayatollah Sistani, Ayatollah Khamenei, and some others, the famous ones that you know of, at least at the moment, the current marajeh, they say no, because it's a duty of me to give the ghusl to the mayyit, or it's my duty to give the tayammum to the mayyit. I do it with my own hand. Some of them still, because of those riwayat, they take mustahab, if possible, do it with the hand of the mayyit as well. But I tell you, according to Ayatollah Sistani, once you give the tayammum with your own hand, it suffices and it's fine. And again, for tayammum, like your own tayammum, you know that if you are wearing the ring, you have to remove the ring as well. Again, according to Ayatollah Sistani, now another issue on tayammum is that how many times do we need to do the tayammum? One tayammum for the entire ghusl mayyit, or ghusl mayyit consists of 3 ghusl. Ghusl with ma'i sidr, camphor and khalis. Do we need to have 3 tayammum? Fatwa again here are different. Humbly, I suggest that if you do give 3 tayammum, you are covered according to wajib and mustahab of your marja and all marajah. 1 tayammum suffices for the 3 ghusl according to Ayatollah Sistani. although 3 tayammum is mustahab. So see, Ayatollah Sistani says 1 tayammum, because 1 tayammum is in place of the total ghusl, which has 3 types of ghusl underneath of it. But even Ayatollah Sistani says it's mustahab. I don't want to get to the technicalities of it because there are so many discussions and riwayat, different riwayat here. This is the reconciliation that our Maraja has made. As opposed to Ayatollah Sistani, Ayatollah Khamenei says 1 tayammum for each ghusl. So there are 3 ghusl. Ghusl mayyit consists of 3 ghusl. For each one, you need to do 1 tayammum. So if you do the mustahab that Ayatollah Sistani also suggests to do the mustahab, you have done your duty. It is also mustahab to give another tayammum for all. So according to Ayatollah Khamenei, there are 4 ghusl actually. 3, 1, 1, 1 for each one, 3 tayammum, and the 4th one for the total one. Anyway, this is for your information. Again, according to another issue about the tayammum is that do we need to strike on the dust once or twice? Even for yourself, when you want to do the tayammum, there are different fatwa. Ayatollah Sistani, Ayatollah Khamenei, both of them, alhamdulillah, have the same opinion here. They say you strike once and you wipe it on the forehead. Strike second time and wipe on the back of the feet of the mayyit, inshallah. And so again, remember, if there's a bandage or anything on the hand and the forehead that was not removable for tayammum, it's fine. There's no problem with that. The only thing is that you need to make intention of tayammum jabirei. When I'm talking about the intention, please be careful. I mentioned this, but again, I need to repeat it because last night I saw that intention doesn't mean that brothers, sisters, please repeat after me word by word. Intention, Brother Hassanein put it in a very accurate way. If somebody asks you, what are you doing? You say, I'm doing ghusl mayyit on this. That means you have the intention. Intention is as simple as this. As long as we are conscious of what we are doing, and I'm here, inshallah, doing this for the sake of qurbatan ilallah. That is intention. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. All right, after the ghusl is done, those who have physically touched the mayyit, they need to do ghusl mass mayyit. We go through some of the rules of ghusl mass mayyit quickly as well. Inshallah, tonight, be patient. We have to finish the parts that we have until ready to go to the cemetery discussion. In the fiqh of Shia, performing ghusl mass mayyit is mandatory. Why I say this? Because according to Sunni fiqh, ghusl mass mayyit is not wajib. Most of them, they say it's mustahab. But remember, some people, because they are coming, I can see that there are interfaith marriages. For the Shia, ghusl mass mayyit is mandatory and wajib. If someone touches the body of the deceased human, male or female, Muslim or non-Muslim, including a fetus 4 months or older, ghusl mass mayyit is obligatory upon them under 2 conditions. So ghusl mass mayyit is not only for a Muslim, non-Muslim the same. Therefore, students in medicine, if they bring some bodies for, they're studying, if they are touching the body, if it's the body of a non-Muslim, definitely there is no ghusl mass mayyit. They have to do ghusl mass mayyit if they are physically touching the mayyit. And if it's a Muslim, only if they know that it's a Muslim that has been washed ghusl mass mayyit, there is no ghusl mass mayyit on them. Otherwise, they have to do it. This is, of course, again, if you are touching without the gloves. And remember the fetus of 4 months old, I mentioned this deliberately to answer another question. If a mother, her fetus, her baby in her stomach dies and the baby is born, yani was already dead and is delivered, the mother, when she is doing the ghusl nifas, she has to do ghusl mass mayyit also as well. So what are the 2 conditions? The first condition is that the whole body of the deceased is no longer warm to the touch. Normally, I check with the doctors, they say it takes about 10-12 hours for the body to be cold. So let's say that this deceased has passed last night, yesterday, or earlier this morning, and now the body is cold, and I'm touching the body during the ghusl. So one condition, this condition is met, or ghusl mayyit has not been performed on the deceased. So if the ghusl mayyit is done, obviously after ghusl mayyit, those who are doing the Hanut or Takhvin, if they touch the mayyit, there is no ghusl mass mayyit for them because the mayyit has already been washed. According to Ayatollah Sistani, there is no obligation for ghusl mass mayyit for touching a severed limb, Here we have different, as I promise you, when we have different fatwa, I will mention it. If I don't mention, that means by and large the fatwa are the same. So there is one discussion among our fuqaha. Somebody, his leg was cancerous, for example, and was amputated in the surgery, in the theater, and the surgeon or the nurse, others are taking the leg out. The person is still alive. Do we need to do ghusl mas mayyit, touching that leg or not? According to Ayatollah Sistani, even if the person was dead, there is no ghusl mas mayyit. There are marajah that they say that even if he is alive and a limb of the body that has bone is touched, there is ghusl mas mayyit. If the person is dead and even a finger is cut, there is ghusl mas mayyit. But according to Ayatollah Sistani, ghusl mas mayyit, and they have their own discussions, no need here to go to the details of it. But the argument of Ayatollah Sistani is the following. He says that ghusl mas mayyit is on a mayyit, a complete person who is dead. So his arm is not called mayyit. His leg is not called mayyit. Therefore, there is no ghusl mas mayyit. Yes, Ayatollah Sistani says that if, God forbid, in an accident or war or something, the body of a mayyit is brought, that is cut into pieces. Hands separated, arms, legs, and everything. It's a mayyit, but in pieces have been brought to you. Touching this mayyit, there is still ghusl mas mayyit. Okay, so inshallah, the issue is clear. Ghusl mas mayyit is applicable whether the deceased body is wet or dry. Even if the mayyit is dry and your hand is dry and you touch it, ghusl mas mayyit is more of it's not a physical kind of najasa. Is what we call it najasat hadathiyya. It's just like when you lose your wudu. So this is kind of the najasa. Of course, it physically becomes najas as well, but the internal najasa will not be removed unless ghusl is done. Touching the dry hair of a deceased, or if one's dry hair touches a dry deceased, ghusl mas mayyit is not required. So it's not about hair to hair, it's about skin to skin. Inshallah, that one is also clear. Touching a mayyit was the wudu. So if I have been doing ghusl mas mayyit and I've touched the mayyit before the ghusl is complete, I don't have any wudu. Now that I don't have any wudu, after ghusl mas mayyit is done, immediately they want in some places to do salat al-janazah. Can I do salat al-janazah either as an imam or joining the namaz janazah? Because I don't have my wudu. There is a ghusl mas mayyit on me. No problem. Inshallah, tomorrow we'll mention that namaz salat al-janazah or salat al-mayyit, there is no requirement of the wudu. Of course, it's better if you are in the wudu, but the salat still is acceptable because it's only a dua actually. According to majority of current jurists, ghusl mas mayyit suffices for wudu. Again, I need to mention that whenever I mention the fatwa or according, let's assure that there are different opinions as well. So most of the current marajah, they say if you do ghusl mas mayyit, if because you didn't have wudu, you don't need to renew or make a wudu. Ghusl mas mayyit suffices for the wudu as well. As ghusl mustahabbi, on Friday you do your ghusl, you don't need to make your wudu, according to Ayatollah Sistani, Ayatollah Khamenei, and most of the current ones. Ghusl mas mayyit is not required if the deceased is touched by gloves. I think I've mentioned this several times. Unless you are sure that during the ghusl your arm touched the body of the mayyit. Otherwise, if you are 100% sure that no, I was wearing gloves and there is no hole in the glove, it's not torn, I didn't come to physical contact with the mayyit, you don't need to worry about ghusl mas mayyit. I think, I don't know whether I should mention this or not, I will mention it anyway. Make sure that we don't get into obsession on these issues. It's very important. And make sure that we are not wasting too much water. Sometimes, unfortunately, I can see that people, because they want to make sure they have done their duty. You know, I've mentioned this example. Someone was on the top of a roof, was going forward. They told him, don't come forward, you're going to fall. He reversed and fell from behind. Yes, we have to do our duty of ghusl mayyit, but you don't need to exaggerate it. Number one, to kill this mayyit, toss and turn. Or someone was telling me last night that do we have to do every part 3 times? Like ghusl with Sidr, right side 3 times. Why 3 times? Baba, you are wasting water. Israf is haram. You don't need to waste too much water. The body has been washed and is wet. Done. Finish. Move on. Ghusl mas mayyit is not required if the deceased is touched by gloves. Ghusl mas mayyit is not required after touching the body of a shaheed or ma'soom. For ma'soom, inshallah, we never have this opportunity. I cannot imagine. But if you ever get a chance to do the ghusl mayyit of a shaheed, there is no ghusl mas mayyit. This reminds me of a question last night. One of the sisters asked about why is it that if somebody in the state of ihram, remember, dies and there is no ghusl with camphor. I checked the riwayat, subhanallah, there is a very good reason mentioned in the riwayat that I was oblivious of. And that is because when you are in the state of ihram, one of the things that is forbidden on us and in the state of ihram is perfume. And camphor, actually, as I will mention it, is perfume, is a natural perfume. So because the person was in the state of ihram, that washing with camphor is he's exempt from and shouldn't be done with the camphor, so that we don't give perfume to them. That is only for the ghusl, but doesn't apply for Hanut and the rest of it. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now for Hanut. After ghusl mayyit is done, the next ritual is called tahnit, or applying the Hanut. Hanut, literally it means perfuming the, let me mention it, I must have it here. Perfuming the 7 parts of the deceased using the camphor. The crushed camphor that you have already used for making the water of kafur. Those camphor, you crush a bit of it, usually we keep it in a jar or something. Do I need to rub it on the parts? Not necessarily. I mentioned this, that not necessarily, because there are cases that, as I said, some diseases are brought to you with many complication, or the body is swollen or anything, that this poor ghassal really doesn't feel comfortable to touch the body. It's very difficult to touch the body or something. You don't have to touch it. Just if this is my forehead and you have the camphor crush, just pour it on my forehead a little bit, that's it. Or wear the gloves. Is it okay to wear the gloves? This part, yeah. Wear the gloves, and with the gloves you can wipe it. So this is 7 parts. The 7 parts are the forehead, palms of the hands, the parts, subhanallah, masajid al-sab'a. You know, the 7 parts that we are doing the sajda are the parts that you are perfuming them. Forehead, palms, knees, the toes, these are the wajib part. But more than that is mustahab, as I will mention. After ghusl or tayammum is done, applying hanut is obligatory. It's not mustahab, it's wajib. Tahnid is wajib, whether the mayyit is an adult or a child. So that means that even a 4 months baby, a fetus 4 months old, that you are doing the ghusl, still you have to do this tahnid or applying the hanut as well. It is mustahab to begin with the forehead. But after the forehead, which part? There is no restriction, and there is nothing is mentioned about that. Naturally, we are used to start from the the hands, the palms, and with the right, and then the left palm, and then you go to the knees and go down. But as far as the recommendation, instruction that we have, start with the forehead, the rest, however you want to do. It is mustahab to apply the hanut on the tip of the nose. So wajib was 7 parts. Now I'm going to the mustahab part of it. As I promised you, I'm separating wajib acts from the mustahab acts. It is mustahab to apply the hanut on the tip of the nose, joints, chest, under the throat, and the soles of the feet. A little bit of hanut apply on these other parts as well. It is mustahab also to mix a little turbat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam with hanut. However, the amount of turbat should not exceed the amount of hanut. A little bit, some particles of turbat, if you have a jar or glass, something, so if you have turbat, just some drops of turbat of Imam Hussein, mix it with the hanut that you have, that is still the hanut is the most of it is hanut, and then you can apply it on the parts. And there is no problem, it's not disrespect or anything, because the mayyit has been already washed. It is mustahab to put some turba of Imam Hussein inside the coffin as well as inside the grave. I checked the riwayat thoroughly on this issue because I had this concern last night. I saw that they are putting some turbat on the eyes and making like a necklace, things made of the turbat of Imam Hussein. Necklace, where is necklace? Necklace or bracelets or things like that. This is something, it's more of a tradition, to be honest with you. There is no hadith to tell you have to make a bracelets like this for the mayyit, but nothing wrong with that. Once the mayyit is washed and you know that there is no bleeding coming to make the turbat najas, it is okay. The recommendation that Imam Reza alayhi salam and other Imams of Ahlul Bayt have mentioned is that make sure that inside the kafan, it's mustahab, not that make sure, it's mustahab to have some turbat inside the kafan. However you like to do it, your choice. And also some turbat inside the grave as well. Both are mustahab to do. Again, sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now we go to putting on the shroud or takhvin. Takhvin, it means the kafan that we cover the body of the mayyit. Takhvin does not require intention of nearness to Allah, remember, although it is better and even better to be in the state of wudu. Remember, we mentioned that amal of funeral, some of them requires intention of ghurbat, like salat, like ghus, but takhvin, I mentioned this just in case it was a situation that no Muslim brother was available, someone else, you could get them to come and help for the takhvin, no problem, give them that job. Before the takhvin, cotton is put into any opening of the body to prevent discharge and soiling on the kafan. I mentioned that last night as we were after the washing. I suggest that you add this to your practice. You have cotton with a bit of coffin, cover the nose, put them inside the nose, the mouth, also cover the mouth, perhaps even the ears possible as well. And for the private parts, because we use the nappies, as I said, that is already done. The reason for that is sometimes before you cover or while we are opening and the face of the mayyit for the family to come and pay the last respect or anything, sometimes some liquid or something, some discharge comes from the mouth and people are freaking, is this najas, tahir, what is it, blood, water? If you have put this cotton to the holes as is recommended to do that, then nothing inshallah will come out and you don't need to worry about the kafan becomes najas. Seal the private parts with an adult nappy or any cloth. Kafan should be definitely tahir until the burial is finished. As far as we know, the kafan must be tahir. So if we notice, even when we are laying down the body in the grave, if I see that all of a sudden there is a blood somewhere, if it's possible to cut it, cut it. If it's not disturbed, like the body is still covered, easily cut that part, put it aside. But if it's too much blood, there has been cases that we had to take the body out again, completely again wash and everything and do the takhvin. Actually washing, if it's after the ghusl, there is no need to do ghusl mayyit again, but the kafan has to be done again. Now, obligatory pieces of kafan. Pieces of kafan consist of two parts. Obligatory parts, recommended ones. I separate them from each other to know which part is wajib, which part is mustahab. The wajib part consists of three pieces, mainly covering torso to the knees or even lower. In Arabic, it's called me'zar. The obligatory part actually is starting from belly button to the knees. But normally we take it a bit longer, from like the chest, usually to the all the way down. The second part covering from the shoulders to the feet, that is called qamis. And the third part covering from above the head to below the feet. Notice, above the head, below the feet. We deliberately make it a bit longer because like a sandwich, when we are wrapping it later on, there has to be enough space for it. Sorry to use this example. Now you are not going to have sandwich anymore. Mustahab pieces of a kafan. That was wajib pieces. Mustahab pieces also are the following. Turban for men. Just make a last night I told them that if I die here and you make a proper turban, you see my turban. Don't just wrap something simple. Make a turban like you are wrapping around the forehead, and the extra parts of it comes and you put it on the chest. And for the ladies, a scarf for the ladies. Bord Yemani or Yemeni, chador, I don't know whether you call it chador or whatever that you refer to it, for the ladies, or aba for men, or their ihram. It is mustahab, the chador that the lady was using usually for prayer. It's good if the family bring that chador, because that chador that she's been praying on, it's blessed already. Make sure after the lady is covered with the kafan, put that chador, bury her with the last chador of her namaz. For brothers, it's mustahab to wear the abba. If someone has been wearing an abba that they've been praying, keep that abba. Inshallah, after 125 years that you die, tell them that, put that my abba on me. You know the story of Bibi Khadija Salamullah alayha. Bord Yemeni is very much recommended. I don't want to make you feel that you need to get to the luxury and spend a lot of things on it. But the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, number one, they have been writing in their will and have been like putting their kafan aside and everything. And especially for Bord Yemeni, give either themselves or getting someone to write on the board. I'll mention Dua, Joshan and all the rest of it, all mustahabat that needs to be done. Prepare them. It's good to have your, what we call it, libas al-akhirah. You have your clothing of yani things, we have put it aside. If there is any khums due on it, have paid the khums and everything. I'm ready, Ya Allah. On the one hand, my will is ready, my kafan and everything is ready. And jaridatain, 2 branches of palm or any green tree. Starting with the palm tree, if not pomegranate, if not cedar, any of them that is possible. As far as it's a green branch of tree, that's fine. There are so many riwayat about this that is mustahab. Even Sunnis, they have it, although unfortunately they come up, Wahhabis especially, with some new explanation as usual. It seems that everywhere they see that there's a similarity with the Shia, they try to distance themselves, even at the cost of ignoring the hadith of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Someone asked Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, what is the benefit of these 2 pieces of branches of tree to bury with the mayyit, that even if he forgot to put it on the body, as I say, later on put it inside the grave before the grave is covered. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, Baba, God is looking for an excuse to forgive us. Why don't you give him an excuse? God says that, the Prophet says that, and there is a story to that at the time of the Holy Prophet. So far as this branch of tree is green, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has lifted the punishment from that disease. Give excuse to God. How much does it cost you? Why? No, I don't understand the philosophy behind it. It's nonsensical. God says, all right, nonsensical. You write in your will, I don't want this jaridatan. And God says, I'll treat you according to your senses. Method of shrouding a deceased. Okay, quickly we go through that. Thank you for your patience. Cut and prepare 5 cotton material strips to secure the kafan. Wrap the wrist, knees, shoulders, and 2 pieces for the 2 ends of the kafan. So we need 5 strips. 3 of them after the kafan is complete, because we need to wrap on the chest, the middle of the body, and the feet. And the other 2, I have to be careful not to be far from this. And the other 2 we need it later on for remember the last 2 ends of the longer kafan. Place the pieces of the kafan on the strips. I appreciate the funeral committee. I'm speaking the obvious for them, but this is not only for you. For others, we want them to understand and join as well. The longest must be laid first, then the qamis, and finally the shortest piece. As you are putting it on that place where you are going to put the mayyit, then the way that we put the longest one comes first, and then the middle one, and then the shortest one, then the nappy, and then we bring the body. And underneath of it is, of course, the strips. The first step, shroud the deceased with the shortest piece naturally. This is after the nappy is put. It is mustahab to place on jarida on the right side of the inner body of the deceased. So if I'm the mayyit, the right side, the first part, before we close the first part, they put the jarida here on my right side, and then the first piece will be put. I'm not sure if I have it here, or maybe inshallah I'll mention. It's mustahab on the jarida, if possible, to write the name of the deceased and a bit of shahadatan or things like that, as much as is possible. Step 2, shroud the deceased with the qamis. Qamis is the middle one. Remember, from the shoulder all the way down. Make a horizontal or vertical cut so to easily put the qamis through the deceased head. This is the theory. Inshallah, when we go for the practical, you will see it easily how it is done, so that we can put it through the head easy. Make a turban for men or a scarf for ladies and put the sides on the chest, as I said. Place the second piece of jarida on the left side of the deceased. The second part, we put it after the full, the third part of the kafan is there. So both jarida are under the kafan. The first one is between the body and the first piece of kafan. The second jarida is between the second piece of kafan and the third piece of kafan. And the third step, shroud the deceased with the longest piece and wrap the two ends of the kafan with 2 cotton material strips provided. What else? Wrap the wrists, the knees, and the shoulders with cotton material strips. When you are wrapping it, be very careful. Ensure that the strips are tied in a way that they can be easily opened in the grave. We need them later on. Once we put the maye inside the grave, we need to undo the ties. So don't tie it so difficult that we have to cut it. Place the deceased in a casket or coffin. Cover the deceased with 1 or 2 board Yamani, chador or abba that we have said already. You have the joshan and other things. Further mustahab acts of takhvin to finish, inshallah. We are almost there. It is recommended to write the deceased name, the testimony of death, dua joshan kabir, or any part of the Quran on board Yamani, or on the piece of fabric that you have already provided, that you cover after the kafan is done. You cover the body with it. Especially dua joshan is very much recommended. There are so many riwayat about dua joshan kabir. The texture of the fabric used for the shroud should not be thin and sheer. It is recommended to be white and made of cotton. The purpose of that is that the first piece that you put, or if you put it around your body, it should not be see-through. Normally, if it's the cotton, it is not thin. It is normally makruh to perfume the kafan. However, applying camphor is different. So some people, for us, the Shia, we don't use any artificial perfume or anything. Camphor, that is Hanut that we apply, it does the job of perfuming the mayyat. It is mustahab to have prepared our kafan in advance, as I said. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. For this part, if there was a question that has not been covered, please kindly. Do you have a question, or you just stretch your hand? Brother Hassanin has a question, yes?
Okay, I've got 3 questions actually.
Yes.
When you said that for the fetus, kafan is supposed to be given, or we need to wrap it in white cloth is enough?
Kafan supposed to be what?
For a fetus, for a 4-month fetus,
Yes,
do you give a
fetus.
full kafan, or you just cover it in white cloth and bury it?
No, full kafan.
Full
Normal kafan, yes. Yeah. We put it. Hang on a second. For the fetus, ghusl is wajib, but takhvin is not wajib.
Okay.
We can wrap it in a cloth and bury it. Sorry,
Okay.
yes. For the fetus of 4 months or older that we do, the obligatory part of it is the ghusl, including hanut. But the kafan, no, we can wrap it in a cloth and bury the baby. No need for those 3 pieces of kafan. Yes.
Okay, and the second question is, when we do Hanut, we mix it with the turba of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Is it only for the forehead or on all parts of the body?
As long as they say, as long as it is not considered disrespect, it's okay to put it on the other parts of the body.
Okay.
And normally our fuqaha, they don't regard it as a disrespect because the mayyat has been already washed and the ghusl is done, the body is pak. Because the body is pak, therefore that should be alright. And remember, just a little bit of particle we do. We mix it with Hanut, and it is not Hanut. What do you say, Hanut? It's not Hanut, the proper pronunciation. Yes, few particles of turbat, and that's fine, whether forehead or other parts.
Okay. And the last question is, when we go for ziyarah, we buy the written the coffin from Karbala. Are we allowed to use that completely as a coffin, or some say that it's not good to use that, we need to just use it on the chest? Or
Very good question, sisters, brothers. If I may request to listen to that question, this is a very common question. Very often, kafan that in Karbala, other places we buy, it's written Dua Joshan, Quran, and everything. Now, if I want to do the Takhvin of the mayyat with that, I will be wrapping it around the body. There are riwayat, many riwayat actually, that they say that write the Dua Joshan and Quran on the kafan. Doesn't say on the board the yaman, it says on the kafan. But because we are wrapping the body with the kafan, and the Quran will be, the written Quran will be under the body of the mayyat, that's why it's better not to use it for wrapping the body and put it on the body. It's more respectful for the body. Yeah.
thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaykum assalam.
Is it mustahab or wajib to do ghusl mayyit on cut limb of a person, whether the person is alive or dead? You mentioned ghusl masa mayyit is mustahab, but what about ghusl mayyit?
Ghusl mayyat for who? For the limb?
For the limb, yes.
There is no ghusl mayyat for the limb.
There is no
No
ghusl.
marja says that, like the leg that I mentioned, that person, his limb was severed, amputated, that limb, there is no ghusl masa mayyat on it. Or there's no ghusl mayyat on it, because it's not mayyat.
Okay. And then a second question, if during performing ghusl mayyit, you realize that there was a wound on that person and you managed to remove the bandage, and then during the ghusl, the body started bleeding, so you have to cover that part. So does the obligation of ghusl get lifted and then you can perform tayammum, or how is it?
I repeat the issue of the bleeding again. During the ghusl, the body starts bleeding again. What shall we do? They say if by waiting a little bit, the bleeding stops, wait a bit to see what happens. Or if you can ask the doctor to come put some stitches to stop the bleeding, do so. But if the bleeding doesn't stop, therefore ghusl is removed, and the alternative is tayammum.
Hasan, shukran.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaykum assalam.
Sorry, this issue about the wound, yeah, where there's some oozing or bleeding, okay?
Yes.
Now some wounds cannot be stitched. They are like open, like bruises, but they are oozing, they're bleeding. And so now, just because of that one wound, ghusl is lifted, you have to go for tayammum, or...
The wound is bleeding?
Yeah, there's some oozing, some bleeding.
Coming
Yeah,
out of
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yes, correct. We cannot do ghusl unless the body is not bleeding, unless there is no obstacle on the body, there is no stitches, there is no glue or any kind of... the body has to be tahir from urine, fetus and blood, as well as there should not be any obstacle on the body. Otherwise, ghusl is not the option.
Okay. One other question. If a body is burnt partially, okay, there is some loose skin there, is it
Yes.
important to remove that skin and then do the ghusl, or just let it be the way it is?
As long as you can wash it and doesn't cause any bleeding, no need to remove it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaykum salam wa rahmatullahi wa
Maulana,
barakatuh.
you said about tayammum.
Yes.
You mentioned that once you hit and forehead, and then you said the other time, because what I have read is once only you can do it for the forehead and the hands also.
Yes.
I hope that is right. Only once.
No, According to Ayatollah Sistani, for Tayammum, you need to strike the dust twice. Once for the forehead, second time for the hands.
Okay.
Doing it once, he says, it's not enough.
Once, twice you have to do
You
it.
need to do it twice. Yani for
And
every wiping, you need to, not every wiping of the forehead once, wiping of the hands, the back of the hands, another time.
Okay, I think you have clarified, but maybe I'm in doubt that if I touch Mayyat, I have to do Ghusl Masa Mayyat when it is already
Yes.
cold. If I touch someone else, there is no need of Ghusl Masa Mayyat.
That person?
Yeah.
No, very good question. I have touched the mayyit and there is ghusl masa mayyit on me. If I touch somebody else or shake hands, someone, does he have to do ghusl masa mayyit? No, he doesn't need to do ghusl masa mayyit, but he needs to wash his hand because my hand was najis. When I'm touching the mayyit before the ghusl is complete, my hands is physically najis, and also I need to do ghusl masa mayyit. But if I touch, shake hand with somebody else and the hand is kind of wet or sweat or anything, the hand of the next person becomes najis, but there is no need for ghusl masa mayyit because he has not touched the mayyit. I'm not mayyit. the mayyit was another person.
Even if the hands are dry,
If the hand is dry and his hand is dry, nothing. Dry to the right doesn't transfer the najasa.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Ladies have question.
Gents, any question?
One more with the gents and then we'll come.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Okay, I just wanted one clarification regarding a new piece of cloth for my coffin. Are we allowed to use the scissors or a knife or something like that to cut the coffin?
Kafan?
Yes.
Yeah, why not?
You used it.
Yes. The pieces of kafan, we use either scissors or a knife or something to cut it. Usually it comes in rolls and we cut it into pieces. Actually, it reminded me to mention something else. Is it okay if the kafan is stitched? Kafan is similar to ihram, with the difference that for men, ihram should not be stitched, but for kafan, even if it is sewn, that's not a problem.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
If someone had a miscarriage at 2.5 to 3 months and was not aware that how the fetus should be buried, now how does one do istighfar for it? Please elaborate.
Between them and God, they just need to do istighfar, no kafara or anything. They just need to say istighfar, astaghfirullah rabbi wa atubu ilayh. And the kafara, if you like to go, it's not a kafara, but the rectification for that is to inform other young ladies and others that in case such thing happens, they will avoid it. They know their duty. Yeah.
Thank you. Another question. What is the difference between Burde Yamani and the written coffin, like with Joshan and Kabir?
Normal kafan, yes.
Yeah.
Burde Yamani is a special fabric that is recommended in the riwayat. Otherwise, normal kafan, normal cotton is also fine. I think as long as Dua Joshan is written on it, it will be fine. If you don't have access to Borde Yamani and you have access to normal fabric of kafan that Dua Joshan is written, that will do as well.
So Burde Yamani basically is a different material?
It's a different material, yes. It's a thicker material, different material.
Next question. Why does a 6-year-old need Salatul Mayyat and why not at the age of Bulugh, as a child is still masum?
The child is not masum, the child is sinless, of course, has not committed any sin. But what part of it was the question about talqeen or?
6-year-old Salatul Mayyat.
It's because Salatul Mayyat is a dua. Inshallah, when we mention tomorrow night about Salatul Mayyat, I will mention that Salatul Mayyat for a child, the wording of it is a little bit different because we are praying for this child. But the prayer for the child is different than the way that we pray for the adult. Like for the adult, say, Ya Allah, we don't know any bad things from them, and if you know anything, forgive them. For the child, we don't need to say that because the child, like what you said, is sinless. But we say that, Ya Allah, this child, make it like compensate his parents or her parents for the loss. This is the type of namaz that we have for the child.
Okay.
So tomorrow night you will see that the wording of namaz mayyat for the child is different. It's more of a dua for the parents of the child.
Yeah, I think the question was why you don't do it for a really small baby, right?
For for under the for
so
the baby that is, as for the mustahab, the baby who is lucky as a fetus, there is no namaz mayyat.
Okay, but 3-month-old, 4-month-old, usually there is.
When you say 3 months, 4 months, you mean the fetus
No,
or
no, no,
born?
baby born.
Baby born is mustahab to read as well.
Okay,
Yes.
makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaykum assalam.
So is border Yemeni from Yemen?
Border Yemeni is a fabric from Yemen. If you go to Hajj in Mecca and Medina, especially in Medina, if you ask the fabric shops about border Yemeni, they know what it is. They will give it
And
to
it's
you.
written with Joshan and Kabir.
It's not necessarily written. They might have written it for you, get it written, but it's just a fabric. Border Yemeni is just a fabric. Imagine the cotton fabric, different types of fabric, is the name of a fabric. And either those places, maybe they have written it already on it, because normally they know people, they buy it for the kafan or to put on the kafan, or you get the fabric, you get someone to write it for you on it.
Okay, it's not a coffin from Karbala or somewhere like that.
In Karbala, you can find it as well. Yes.
And what about the necklace that people do of 40 mulks? They tie knots. Is it necessary?
The necklace, as I said, is a tradition. There is no such things as putting a necklace on the mayyit or bracelets on the mayyit. What is recommended is to keep some turbat of Imam Hussein inside the kafan. But whether how you put it, in which form you make it, it's tradition to tradition, culture to culture is different.
Okay, and the tayammum for ghusl, it's just forehead and feet or forehead and hands?
Not feet. No, tayammum is only exactly how we do the tayammum ourselves. If I need to do the tayammum, I strike the dust like this, wipe on my forehead all the way to the sides, including the eyebrows for precaution as well, and then strike again. My right arm, of course I shouldn't have the ring, like this. That's exactly what you do for the mayyit. With your hands you wipe on the forehead of the mayyit, and then strike again with your hands, you wipe on the back of their hands. No feet.
Thank you.
Salam, Sheikh.
Salam alaikum.
So you mentioned about the jardathain, right? The branches.
Mhm.
So we normally use here a thick one for the right side and a thin one for the left side. Is that traditional or is it
It's
is
just
it
a
necessary?
No difference.
There's no need to
As
stress.
far as the size, and it mentioned that 2 pieces of fresh branches.
Yeah, so doesn't
It's not that different sizes. No. They can be of the same size or different size. Remember that there's no such detailed instructions.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Sheikh.
Yes. Brother Hassanan says when you are cutting a branch of a tree, maybe the end of it is thicker, the end of it is thinner. It doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
So the first question is that if we touch a mayyit that is warm, is it a must to take ghusl?
Ghusl masa mayyit?
Yeah.
Definitely, yes.
Okay. And the second question is, it has 3 sub-questions. So the first one is that, as you mentioned yesterday, on a 12th Shia can perform ghusl on an Ithna Ashari. Why is it so necessary for only a 12th Shia to do so? That's the first question. The second question is, why can't any other Shia Muslim perform ghusl? And the third one is, and during the times of Prophet Ibrahim and Prophet Muhammad, there were no different sects. Why aren't they all performing ghusl in the same manner?
All right. The reason that Shia Ithna Ashari has to be the one, see, we are all Shia Ithna Ashari and we are holding this seminar to learn about the rules. Imagine someone who is not Shia Ithna Ashari. And normally people, at best, they know about their mazhab, the rituals of their mazhab. So for me as a Shia Ithna Ashari, the obligation is that I want to be washed according to my own mazhab, not to another mazhab or another religion. So if somebody else from a different mazhab of Ithna Ashari is undertaking my ghusl, there is more chance that he will do it according to his understanding and his belief, which will be contrary to me. That's why our fuqaha, they say that the ghusl must be done by, if the person is Shia Ithna Ashari, must be done by Shia Ithna Ashari to ensure that it is done correctly. And what you said about the time of Prophet Ibrahim and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was no sex. That's very correct. But unfortunately, we are not living at that time.
The second question is Tayammum for ghusl done in the same way as the one for wudu?
Oh, sorry, I didn't get it.
Is Tayammum for ghusl done in the same way as the one for wudu?
They're exactly the same. Yes, the only difference is the intention. The question is that Tayammum instead of wudu, is it the same as Tayammum instead of ghusl? Exactly the same, with the exception of intention.
Sheikh, in the mustahab acts, you didn't mention anything about the akik. So we normally put the akik in the mouth. Is it just a tradition or is it a mustahab act?
I have seen people doing it, but I myself haven't come across the hadith, but I believe there is a hadith for it. Because I know about one of the Maraja, actually in his will, he had written it to put the aqiq under his tongue. I'm sure he must have come across the hadith. I will again search for it to see if I can find any hadith for it, but it seems that there must be something like this.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Sheikh.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
I wanted to ask, where the case that when they have an accident sometimes, the ears bleed of the mayyat, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes you can't stop the bleeding. So at one point we were suggested to put wax inside the ear, soften wax to help stop the bleeding. Is that permissible?
Very good question. I repeat the question in case not a... The question is that sometimes the ear of the mayyat is bleeding. Is it possible to put some wax inside to stop the bleeding? If the wax that you are putting is going inside, because when you are doing the ghusl of ourselves or the mayyat, external part of the body needs to be washed. If the wax is going inside, that the size of the apparent size part of the ear is washed and is clear, is fine. Sometimes we have to put too much wax that the entrance of the ear will be covered. No, that is not good. But if it's going just inside, that's fine. After the ghusl, if you like to remove, not remove it, no difference. No, the question is that even during the ghusl.
If we use that, so that there is no discharge after the ghusl. To prevent any najasa.
You can also do that. After the ghusl is done, any band that you want to put or anything, there is no restriction. The whole issue is about during the ghusl. After the ghusl, no problem. Any more questions? Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam, sister.
The question has just come. Okay, you mentioned that if the body is warm, you said you have to perform ghusl. If we touched, when the body has come, and if we touch it, someone has touched at home, the body is still warm. Is ghusl wajib on that person?
No. Let's say that this person, this brother or sister has just passed away, or it's a couple of hours, the body still is not cold, and we touch the body, there is no ghusl mas mayyit. Mahe Ramadhan, my father, when passed away, like few minutes later, I got to his house and I was trying to resuscitate him. I didn't have to do any ghusl mas mayyit because he had just passed away. Okay. Ghusl mas mayyit, instead of that you cannot do ghusl mas mayyit, you do the tayammum instead. I'm not sure if I got the question.
He's asking if he has given tayammum to the mayyat. What about him? Does he have to do ghusl mas mayyit or tayammum?
Of course, you have to do ghusl mas mayyit. Very good question. Let me answer this question as well. Instead of doing ghusl mayyit, I have done tayammum to the mayyit. Do I need to do ghusl tayammum myself, or have to do ghusl mas mayyit? No, ghusl mas mayyit is for touching the mayyit, not because you have done the ghusl or tayammum to the mayyit. So still you have to do ghusl mas mayyit. Thank you for your question. No, really, that was a good question to bring to our attention. Jazakallah khairan.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
So you mentioned when it's impossible to give ghusl or tayammum, you can put like the body in there's no obligation essentially to do ghusl. So something like a very highly infectious disease like Ebola, if a patient has that or a dead body has that, what is the ruling, especially if there's a significant risk?
As I said, when it's not possible, it's not possible. La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wus'aha. Everything in Islam is within the parameter of possibility, without any great hardship. Sometimes it is possible with great hardship. Even Islam doesn't want that. If it's possible without great hardship, yes, there is a bit of difficulty, but still I can manage, do it. But no, it's not possible. And everyone we ask, I cannot, and it's dangerous, or I'm concerned about my health or something, then it's lifted. There's no obligation.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Okay, you mentioned about the time frame after the person has passed on, and there are how many hours where you can stay without doing the ghusl mayyit? Around 8 hours, you say, is something?
To be honest with you, I'm hesitant to give you the exact hour time. That is not my area, number one. Number two, depends on where the mayyit is. In warm areas, cold areas, winter season, warm season is different. But normally what I have asked from the doctors, and still don't quote me on that, doctors, they say it takes about 10 to 12 hours for the body to be cool, to the touch.
Now, for example, if a person has just passed on and it's couple of hours now, and you are still with the disease, is you are waiting for the Mayyat committee to come and everything and settle you, but you touch the body and you still find it's already cold. 5 hours are not yet done, 8 hours, but now is ghusl mayyit wajib on you?
The rule is that if the body is cold, yes.
If the body
whether
is cold, you
within
do
an hour or 10 hours, doesn't matter.
You still need to do the ghusl mayyit.
Yes.
Okay. Now, for example, ghusl mayyit is or masih mayyit is already wajib on you, but you know in another couple of hours you will be touching the mayyit again because you want to give the ghusl to your deceased family member or something. So now instead of doing two ghusls, you rather wait. You finish to do the main ghusl. And then you can do your ghusl. During that time frame, you can't just be sitting around. You want to recite Quran or maybe on your deceased. Can you touch the holy book during that state of?
Remember that your hand is najis, so you should not touch the words of the Quran. Or if your hand is wet and touches somewhere, your hand that place becomes najis. But if your hands is dry, that's fine. But ghusl mayyit is not something that you have to do immediately. It becomes wajib for the next salat that you want to offer. Let's say it's midday, it's in the morning, 8 o'clock, and you know that in 2 hours time you have to do ghusl mayyit to this person, and there's no namaz time now. That's fine. You don't have to do ghusl mayyit until you do the ghusl, and then do ghusl mayyit at the end.
So during
but
that
just
time
remember that because you have touched the mayyit, if you wet touch any place, you make it najis.
You make it najis, okay. And after you have done your ghusl mayyit, the clothes which you are wearing, can you mix them with the other clothes or they need to be washed separately?
They are najis. If they have become wet, they have become najis. You need to make them tahir.
Separately. And not mixed with other clothes?
Even if they are mixed, as long as you put them in the washing machine that is washing it properly, that makes it tahir, is fine. The main thing is that you need to know that these clothes are najis, or rather mutanajjis, and therefore they need to be washed. If you take them under the tap water once, it becomes tahir. Very easy.
Shukran, jazakallah.
Sheikh, just a clarification. There was a question from the lady's side. The question was, we have a tendency of reciting 40 Suratul Mulk, and then we tie knots on a piece of cloth, and that cloth is then put on the neck of the marhum. So is there any tradition, or this is just?
I have not seen this in any fatwa or any hadith book that you need to recite 40 times Surah Mulk and put it around the neck. No. Please read Surah Mulk 400 times, 4,000 times, but while you are alive.
Assalamu
Make
alaikum.
it a habit that every night of your life you read Surah Mulk and send it for your burial night.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
I've got two questions.
Yes.
One is when you receive a body which is done post-mortem on it, sometimes we receive it and the body parts are already out. What is the ruling on that? Should we put it back and then stitch and do the ghusl, or should we not bury the body parts which we receive after the post-mortem has taken place? Number two, we
Sorry,
receive...
before we go to the second question, to make sure I got the first one, you mean that some of the limbs are
Yes,
separate?
sometimes they remove it to do the post-mortem, they remove some body parts, the lungs,
Ahsan.
maybe some...
When we are doing it's a very good question. The question is that a mayyat comes in a bag that for some reasons, accident or anything, some limbs are severed. So when we are doing the ghusl, we do the ghusl of everything, including that, for example, that arm as well. And when we are doing the kafan, we put it with the rest of the body of the mayyat and do the kafan all around.
But my question is post-mortem. They actually cut the body, they remove certain parts to verify how the person died. So in that case, do we then
For
put the
autopsy,
part of the body back in the body, then stitch it and do the ghusl, or do we not worry about that part?
If
that
it's
we
the
receive?
internal organs of the
Yes,
body,
internal
there is no
organ.
need for that.
So internal organ, we just remove it and we discard it.
That's correct. Yes, yes.
Okay.
In internal organs, there is no need to put them back to the body.
Okay. The second question was, a lot of bodies come and they send it to Iraq, and then they do embalmment, which is removing of the blood from the body. Now, is that allowed in the Sharia?
That's fine.
That's fine, yeah?
That's fine, yes. Yeah.
Even
for
though...
hygienic purposes, some airlines, they won't accept it unless this is done.
Correct.
So that the body doesn't get
Yeah.
The odor.
But even though we believe that there should not be any aziyat to be gone on the dead body, it's okay to do the embalmment.
I don't know, as long as the ruling of the Maraja is that so far as it's not counted, regarded as disrespect to the mayyat. And I don't think it will be a disrespect to the mayyat. On the contrary, if this is not done, it would be a disrespect because it creates an odor.
Okay, just a follow-on question. Is it better then to bury yourself in the place where you die, or is it better to send your body to Iraq in Wadi Salam to be buried there?
Very good question again. Inshallah, on the topic of the burial, we'll touch on that. But since the question was raised, by default, it's better to be buried to the nearest Muslim cemetery. However, certain places are exceptional. Like Wadi Salam is one of the places that is very much recommended, if possible. Or if someone has access to be buried next to the holy shrines of Ma'sumin or the children of Ma'sumin, these are exceptionals. Otherwise, they say don't make it difficult for the family to take you. Just because I like to be buried in my hometown, and the person is buried, I don't know, in London, and he's born in Mombasa, and they have to bring the body and bury in Mombasa. It's an unnecessary extra thing. There is no difference between Muslim cemetery in Mombasa or in London, for example.
Thank you. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I've got a similar question to the gentleman before me. We've got post-mortem. You've been released the body without organs. The organs coming after 2-3 months after forensic. So what's the procedure for these organs to follow?
The internal organs?
Yes.
There is no procedures, there is no rituals on it. We don't need to do any ghusl on the internal organs or anything at all. Even if you tell the hospital or those morgue that they dispose it, there's no problem.
So we have to do a normal funeral for like a burial?
For the internal organs?
Yes.
You can just bury it. If they give it to you, you can just bury it wherever that you can bury it.
Oh.
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum. So in a situation where we have probably mass murder, and then so several people have died, and there's one limb there, the other limb there. The head is not. The head is away. I mean, some other places. For instance, in the instance of Karbala, so the head of him was sent somewhere else, and then probably at the time other people are coming to the land of Karbala to collect the bodies. So this part, sometimes people were not finding them. How are they doing there? How do you do ghusl might for such a case?
The parts that they did not find, or they found some pieces of the body?
Find some pieces, there's no head probably.
And any part they find, they will do the ghusl on it and bury it. Yes. Any question? Yes, there is.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam, sister.
There was somebody who had converted into Shia Ithnashri. But after his death, the burial time, the ghusl, the talqeen, the namaz-e-janaza was all given by the Shia Ithnashris. But the family of the person was from the Sunni side. And it was agreed between the families that the body will be washed by the Shias and buried in the Sunni cemetery. To the utter disbelief, later on, it was found out by the Shia family that the body was washed again by the Sunni family. What is the ruling on that?
No problem. As long as the Shia have done their duty, if they rewash the body, it doesn't make a difference.
Jazakallah.
Yes, yeah.
The first question is, from what month does a fetus need to be buried if it's miscarried?
If it's miscarried, if it's under 4 months, there is no regulation, obligation about it because soul has not come to the fetus yet. Under 4 months old, because I have seen, it's like, you can hold it in the hand, it's very little. You can just bury it, whatever. Or even if the hospital, they ask for it, we don't have any obligation for it. But after 4 months that the soul has come, then the rituals start.
The second question was that you were talking about the obligatory parts of the coffin. Can you please elaborate on the third part?
Obligatory part for what?
1 second. You had said that the first one is covering the torso to the knees or even lower. Then you say the second one is the shoulders to the feet. Can you elaborate on the third one?
Are you talking about the shrouding?
Yeah.
Okay, for the shrouding, the obligatory parts consist of 3 pieces. The first piece is the torso to the down. The second, shoulder, that is also kind of the same because today almost the size that we use is the same. But the first one is shorter, is covering the middle of the body. The second part is from shoulder all the way down. And so it's just like 3 pieces of clothes. Imagine that you are wearing 3 pieces of fabric, one on the top of each other. The first one that is touching your body, the skin, is shorter. The second one is a bit longer. The third one covering the whole body. Yeah. And the way that you put, if it's the fabric, I'm putting the mayyat on it. And it should be on the sides. It's good that you mentioned this for me to remember. The fabric should be wide enough that the sides will lap on each other, cover each other when you are wrapping it. Yeah.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum. You said about the children below 5 that Hanut is wajib.
Hanut is wajib, yeah.
So what if we have...
Hanut and ghusl, they go together.
Yeah. So we have done the ghusl and we have not done the Hanut because I think we might have missed that out. What is the ruling for that now?
For under the 6?
Yeah.
Remember, under the 6, the ghusl actually for under the 6 is also wajib.
Yeah, ghusl.
Yes, ghusl is wajib.
Yeah, ghusl we have done.
Yes, you didn't know that you had to do the hanut.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You didn't know, and it's been buried already, I suppose.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, no problem. But
and,
for the future, hanut is also, hanut goes with the ghusl. Wherever there is a ghusl wajib, hanut is also wajib as well.
Okay, fine. And the second one, a mother gives birth to a stillborn baby, you said. So after the ghusl, of this istihaza and what is done, you said you have to do ghusl of Mahe because the mother has touched.
Naturally, because her body has touched the baby as well.
What if they didn't know about it?
Okay, very good question. If they didn't know about it and the lady is still alive, she has that ghusl. She actually doesn't have that ghusl. Very good, very technical question. It's good for the ladies to know. A lady gave birth and she had a stillborn baby dead. She didn't know she has to do ghusl mayyat. Because she has done ghusl nifas, it suffices for ghusl mayyat as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
One obligatory ghusl that you had done, janabat, nifas, or anything like that, suffices for that as well.
Okay. There's a question. During ghusl, we are told to be gentle on the soul, as the soul feels
Be gentle to the body,
everything.
you mean?
Yeah, no, the soul feels everything.
How can we be gentle to the soul?
I don't know.
We
During
don't know.
ghusl, we are told to be gentle as the soul feels everything, the pain. Can you explain what actually happens to the soul?
Yes, yes, very good. Remember, sister, the first note I mentioned that this topic goes two sides. One is about journey to the unseen world. Inshallah, will be discussed in the future, and it's much longer than this. Another one is the journey of the body. Now, according to the riwayat, when you are in fact, from the moment that the person's soul is departed from the body, he's around he's in the same room and he's watching everyone. Unfortunately, cannot communicate. We cannot communicate with the soul, but there are so many riwayat and testimonies that the soul of the person is in the room, watching the relatives, families, what they are doing and everything, and comes along with the body to the maghsal, comes along with his body to the cemetery also as well, watches everything that they have done until when they go. The first night of the burial is the time that his reckoning begins. Before that, still somehow he's in this dunya and he's aware of all that is happening. When we say to be gentle with the body, some people, they think that like if it hits the stone, the soul says, oh, you hit it. It's not like this. It's just a matter of respect or disrespect. As a matter of fact, the mayyat, like that marhum yesterday, when he's seen that people around and really looking after his body and washing his body, he feels very comfortable. And it's natural that when you are washing the body, toss and turn, sometimes it hits, maybe the head unconsciously hits the stone or anything. It's not that he gets hurt. The hurt is when the body is neglected. The hurt is then when the body is disrespected and neglected and the people are chit-chatting and ignore their duty. This is how the soul will be hurt.
Okay, thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam alaikum.
The question is that what if you find a dead body but it's in pieces and you found, let's say, a piece of a leg. So, and you did the ghusl mayyat, you have prayed the janaza and it's buried. And then later on you find the other piece, like let's say the hand. So is it wajib to do or no?
Later on you found another piece of the body?
Yeah.
Buried where the body is buried.
And let's say
some
ghusl.
riwayat says that Imam Hussein alayhi salam's head, after, if this is true, when Imam Zainul Abidin returned to Karbala, buried the head of Imam Hussein where the body was buried.
So ghusl mayyat, janaza should not be recited again?
No, not on the piece of body.
The other one?
On the, no, yeah,
found,
that limb that you found later on, there is no ghusl mayyat, there is nothing on it. We just bury it with the body.
Thank you.
Yeah. No more question? No more question from us. One question, okay. Last question. Last 3 questions. Last 5 questions.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Okay, I have a question. When a child is born in the hospital and he's been declared that he's dead.
Yes.
Normally what happens in the hospital, the child is taken by nurse to go and wash the body and everything. Are we supposed to do azan and ikama to the body of the child?
And if the child is dead, there is no azan or iqamah.
There is no.
Azan or iqamah is recommended for child that is alive, not for the dead one.
Okay.
For the dead one, it is mustahab to just say the shahadatain. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, and that's it. It's a kind of talqeen, simple talqeen for that child, yes.
Is there any restriction for an expecting mother to give ghusl to a mayyat? And
No.
if, sorry.
As long as it does not affect her emotionally, that doesn't have any adverse effect on her body, no restriction.
Okay, and so she can also be with the mayyat, sit next to the mayyat, there is no problem,
No
correct?
problem.
Okay, sorry, one more question. Sorry, forgive me. Okay, if a person dies and we have touched his body, and if we do not perform ghusl masse mayyat, is there anything like that you become pak after some few days, or you're still najis and you have to perform ghusl masse mayyat?
There is no such things as automatically becoming pak. You still need to do the ghusl. However, after that, for example, as I said, if they do ghusl janabat, it cleans them from ghusl masse mayyat as well.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
One thing, especially the youngsters, they need really to experience being around the deceased people. Couple of times you will be there, you really believe, because unfortunately people feel scared to be around the deceased mother or grandmother or someone. The mayyat is more peaceful and obviously absolutely harmless. This poor old man was harmless when he was alive, let alone now that he's dead, and nothing to be scared about. Don't think that like we are scared of our imagination. Some people, I don't know, for some reasons, they are scared and they say that, oh, you're pregnant, don't be around this. So what, she is pregnant? It's something that we need to believe ourselves that my grandma, if she was alive, wouldn't I like to be around her? Sometimes, in fact, depriving her to be, if the person is her mother or very near of kin, if they are not around, we don't let them to be around and kind of vent it out, relieve themselves. For us, the rest of her life, she always feels that they didn't let me see my mom in the last, before her burial.
I think this is the very last question. If somebody drowns and the body is not found, is there anything like Salatul Mayyat for that person?
There is no Salatul Mayyat, there is no Ghusl Mayyat because the body is not there. No, we only pray for them. Ya Allah, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Bar Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, salawat. Jazakallah khair, all of you.